In news this week, religious education relegated to the sidelines in Victoria. Bible Society Australia buys out Coorong bookstores. And new research highlights the healing power of faith.
This is InFocus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hello, it's fantastic you could join us for In Focus this week. I'm Kent Kingston, and at the news desk is my co-host, Sibel Coutet. How are you, Sibel?
I'm great, thanks, Kent, and I'm particularly looking forward to today's program.
Okay.
We have an interview with Phil and Belle Thompson, and I hear they've recently got married.
Yes, that's right. They were a bit worried for a while there that they might never find that one special person, but it seems that God had a plan after all. And also today, Aussie politics, and Sue Rad will give us some hints on moving towards a more plant-based diet.
That's all coming up after the news.
That's right.
Christian organisations are crying foul after the Victorian government announced religious education will no longer be provided during school hours at state schools. According to the ABC, Access Ministries, which is the main provider of RE in Victorian schools, says the government made the change without any warning or consultation. The Victorian government has been taking an increasingly tough stance on religion in its schools, banning prayer groups and the distribution of religious materials during school hours. The opposition says the latest move represents a broken promise, and a number of Christian groups are calling for a review of the decision. Sanitarium, which is owned and operated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, has announced it will cease making Weet-Bix and other health foods at its most historic site. Over the next 3 years, manufacturing operations at the Coorong factory will be gradually moved half an hour south down New South Wales Central Coast to the Berkeley Vale facility as well as to Brisbane. Sanitarium management says it was a tough decision to make, but the ageing Coorong plant is increasingly difficult and expensive to maintain. In an official statement, Sanitarium said employees will be offered transfers to other locations where possible. The rest will be assisted to transition to new employment. Sanitarium began manufacturing at Coorong in 1898. Australia's largest Christian bookstore chain, Coorong, has been purchased by Bible Society Australia, a partnership that's being described as a match made in heaven.
When we first spoke about joining forces, I was really impressed by Coorong's commitment to mission and to serving the churches, and this clearly aligns with what Bible Society is trying to do, that is to translate, distribute, engage people with the Bible and Christian resources.
After state-based Bible societies around Australia began working together and eventually merged, Bible Society Australia has been going from strength to strength, sponsoring motor racing and acquiring the Eternity Christian newspaper. Large-scale medical studies in the US have added to the growing evidence that the safest level of alcohol use is no alcohol. Harvard University research found that women who consumed only one standard drink per day still had a 13% higher risk of cancer than their non-drinking peers. Breast cancer is the most common cancer linked to alcohol for women. For men, it's colorectal cancers. According to News Limited, 3.6% of cancers worldwide are linked to alcohol use, and it doesn't matter whether the alcohol consumed is wine, beer, or spirits. The Seventh-day Adventist Church, which has its roots in the temperance movement of the 1800s, is among the Christian groups who continue to advocate an alcohol-free lifestyle. An horrific series of murders in the Russian city of Nizhny Novgorod has prompted authorities to raid church offices in a crackdown that Adventist leaders say has been handled poorly. Oleg Belov has been arrested in connection with the gruesome deaths of his wife, children, and elderly mother. The Moscow Times was among the media outlets that claimed Belov is a Seventh-day Adventist. But even though church leaders say Belov was removed from membership in 2007 for unchristian behaviour, Adventist properties have been searched and church workers interrogated. Adventist leaders say the false information spread about the church in connection with the killings has damaged its reputation. They've also expressed their condolences to the grieving family and their willingness to help the authorities with their investigation. Despite an official end to the hostilities in the Central African Republic, tension between Christians and Muslims has again spilled over into violence. According to Premier, between 10 and 16 people have died in clashes that began with the beheading of a Muslim teenager by militiamen connected with a so-called Christian anti-Balaka movement. The majority of the dead, however, were Christians, killed by members of the shocked and angry Muslim community who responded to the beheading with revenge attacks. Legal and religious experts meeting in California have faced up to the reality of religion-motivated violence, but also the healing power of faith. The 17th annual meeting of religious liberty experts brought together representatives from across the religious spectrum and around the world, as well as lawyers and academics specializing in religious freedom. Those present were confronted with the reality of the 5.5 billion people, 77% of the world's population, who currently live in countries with significant restrictions on religious freedom. Case studies highlighted not only the reality of religion-motivated violence, but also the reconciliation facilitated by religious leaders in places like Rwanda. The gathering was coordinated by the International Religious Liberty Association, which is sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. New medical research has found that a belief in God can make a crucial difference when dealing with serious illness. According to the Gospel Herald, the study of 44,000 cancer patients found that those with the strongest faith said they felt healthier and mentally better, and appeared to experience fewer symptoms of cancer and its treatment. It's not the first study to highlight the healing power of faith. Previous research has found that rates of liver cancer survival improved for patients who are actively seeking God, and that faith can make a positive difference in conditions as various as heart attack, stroke, depression, and schizophrenia. Sam Terry, who's studying at Sydney's Moore College, estimates that there are 7 million spare bedrooms across Australia. It's an insight that has sparked him to start up a scheme that he says is a bit like Airbnb for asylum seekers. The Enough Room project and website helps match up willing hosts with asylum seekers looking for accommodation while they get themselves on their feet, spare rooms, granny flats or homes. Right now, the project is in its pilot phase and is limited to Western Sydney. Enough Room is being supported by Christian organisation House of Welcome, which focuses on the needs of asylum seekers and refugees. And that's this week's news. Kent?
Thanks, Abel. Hey, stay with us. Politics in Focus is coming up straight after the break.
So you think you've got your future all planned out, right? Or maybe you're not sure yet. What you want to do, who you want to be. A great education matters. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. And it's great to have here in the studio for a change, David Hutt from the Australian Christian Lobby. Wow, the ACL in the flesh.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Ken. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah. Now, David, I understand you've had a bit of a win just recently with the issue of Zoo Weekly magazine being in supermarkets. Well, what was the problem exactly, just going back a step?
Yeah. So Coles supermarkets have just said that they're no longer going to stock Zoo Weekly magazine, which is a magazine that really tries to push the limits of decency.
So in terms of sexual content, is that what...
Absolutely. I mean, this really is a pornographic magazine. The articles in it really promote the objectification of women, and I mean, I couldn't read it out to you, Kent. It's just so extreme. Coles have seen the light, though. There's been a really impressive campaign run by grassroots organisations collecting nearly 40,000 signatures, and off the back of that and through their usual processes of reviewing their stock, Coles have said that they're not going to sell this magazine anymore, and I think that's really significant. Now what we need to see, Kent, is other retailers like Woolworths coming to the party and saying that they won't sell this magazine anymore.
I think most of us understand that if we go to a service station, we go to a newsagent, there's going to be a range of magazines there. Some of them are going to have adult content. What's your issue with supermarkets in particular? When I assume you could buy this magazine in a lot of different outlets.
Yeah, sure. So I think the problem with this, Kent, is most Australians would support our classification system. It helps us make informed decisions about what sort of media we consume. Our concern at ACL is that Zoo, if you like, is one of those publications that slipped through the cracks. It essentially has got the equivalent of a G rating when really it should have much tougher restrictions placed on it.
So a child could buy this magazine
that's
from
exactly
the
right.
supermarket.
Yeah. And so there are currently no restrictions on the sale of Zoo Weekly. We think that's inappropriate. And so what we've done at ACL is we've written to the state and federal attorneys general calling for there to be a reclassification of Zoo Weekly, and we've listed a range of transgressions, if you like, that they've made where they've crossed the line, and we're hoping to see the magazine reclassified.
Okay, all right. On to another topic, David. Is it my imagination, or does it seem that in the media space there's a growing willingness to discuss the issue of same-sex marriage, and perhaps some of this sort of intolerant sort of language of bigot and hater is perhaps reducing a little, and people are saying, no, let's talk about this in a respectful way?
Look, I hope so, Ken. I really do. We've seen in the last little while the Prime Minister has said that he wants to see a people's vote on marriage. Now, if the Australian people are going to be voting on the future of marriage, then that means hopefully we're going to have a much more mature national debate on this issue, where hopefully all sides
of the argument... Well, we need to have a mature national debate, don't we?
Well, we do, we do. And whatever your views on marriage are, and people have strongly held views on this, we should be able to hear both sides of the argument in a respectful manner. So far, we've seen a lot of one-way traffic on this issue, I'm afraid, and that's led to a lot of people being called names like homophobe and bigot. That's just no substitute for having an argument or having a debate. There are good reasons to preserve marriage. There might be good reasons to change the definition of marriage. Everyone should be able to put forward their best argument, and we should be able to hear both sides in a respectful and civil debate.
Yeah, it goes for a lot of things. Hey, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, David.
Great. Thanks very much, Kent.
And now it's time for Food in Focus.
Hey, look, folks, Drew, my mouth is watering furiously. This is a plant-based walnut mushroom meatball, because plant-based diets are trending. It's the latest thing. We have Sue Rad to tell us about it.
Hi, James.
And you won't let me eat this till later, Sue.
We've got to wait.
Now, tell us about these plant-based diets.
Yes, well, plant-based diets are really the way we all used to eat. Decades ago, centuries ago.
Traditional.
Traditionally, everyone used to eat a plant-based diet because there were no factory farms to raise meat. Meat was expensive.
And to kill the family cow, I guess.
That's right. So mostly what plant-based eating is about is having more plants on your plate. So eating more plants. So it doesn't necessarily mean vegetarian. It can be vegetarian or vegan, but there's a whole spectrum. So it could be semi-vegetarian, where you don't eat as much meat as you used to. It could be pesco, where you eat some fish but you don't eat red meat. So as I say, a whole spectrum, and plant-based eating captures it all because it's a focus on plant foods.
So you don't have to give up everything you love, you just have to eat more plants.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Now, why is it trending? Why is it a hot topic?
Well, I think the reason for that is several-fold. Firstly, governments and health professionals recognise that we should all be eating more plants. Plant-based diets lower your risk of chronic disease, so they're pushing for that. Secondly, animal welfare groups
Save the planet.
are encouraging it.
And the environment.
So for animal welfare in particular, it's save the animals or be kinder to them. So plant-based eating fits that.
Isn't it? More plants and happier animals.
But in terms of the environment, you leave a lighter footprint, as they call it, in terms of
takes a lot of water to feed a cow, doesn't it?
It does. Yes.
And not much to go soybean. Okay, so just tell us, what do you actually do with a plant-based diet?
Okay, so the way you could adopt more of a plant-based diet, you don't have to change overnight. You could simply swap a recipe, modify your recipe. You could swap a meal or even swap a day and make it a plant-based diet, which is meat-free. So, for example, James, you could decide to adopt what they call meat-free Mondays.
Oh, okay.
So on Monday,
Yeah.
you go completely meat-free and you eat everything from plants. So
Oh, that
there
could be
we
scary
have,
for first time.
have a taste of that walnut and mushroom
Oh, I can
meatball.
now.
You can. And that, of course, is meant to go in a beautiful, rich tomato sauce on soft-cooked polenta or pasta, and it is delicious. Go for it.
You know, you like walnuts and you like mushrooms together?
Well, together, you create a really rich, earthy flavour that will rival that rich flavour of red meat that people enjoy.
It's the natural glutamates inside the mushrooms, the MSG, so to speak.
That's right. Or you could go Tofu Tuesdays. So you could use very firm tofu and slice it up and just pan-fry it or saute it or grill it or whatever. And where you've used chicken, swap it for the chicken. A really easy thing to do.
This is fantastic, Sue. Now, she's not giving away the recipe until she releases her cookbook. Go to SueRad.com, though, and sign up for the newsletter. This is just amazing. But keep talking to tell us through.
Sure. So you could have a salads Saturday where you decide to just focus on eating lots of delicious salads. You could have beans with your salad and that way make that a meat-free day. Or go for a Super Sunday.
Oh, soup on Sunday.
So you have soup on Sundays and you make that plant-based. So there's lots of ways to do it, and as I mentioned, you don't need to do it all at once. You don't necessarily have to be vegetarian or vegan if that's not your cup of tea, but it will benefit everyone if you become more plant-based. So at least have some days that are free of meat or animal foods and focus on plants. Good for your body, good for the animals, and good for the environment as well.
I'm going to reach over and get one more meatball. Folks, you could just start with one meal or go day by day, but why not start moving towards a plant-based diet and join the trend, Sue, eh? Here
Absolutely.
It goes. Thank you.
Enjoy.
The media targets our goals with destructive messages. But is there an alternative? Yes, it's Gigi. Gigi is a great new magazine for teenage girls that uplifts good Christian values. Finally, a way to pass on our values in a way the teenage girls in our life will love. So give a subscription to a teenage girl you love today. Visit ggmagazine.com.au. That's gigimagazine.com.au.
Hi, welcome back. Well, we have an interesting story for you today. We have in the studio Phil and Belle Thompson, who are married.
Yes, that's right.
Wow. No, but in all seriousness, it's a pretty amazing story because both of you, for many, many years, were just praying, God, please help me to find this right person for me. But it wasn't until you were 30 years old that you found the right person. Well, what's the problem? Too picky? Well,
a lot of people said that. Yeah. When I was 15, I had a strong desire from God to become a husband. And I actually assumed that my journey would follow that of my parents, who were high school sweethearts and are still married and doing great today. And God had a different plan in mind. So,
and Belle?
I'm thankful now, looking back there, because I think God really used, wouldn't you say, used those extra years to really develop things in our character and certain things that just for us needed working through. And I'm thankful. I think I got a better husband because of the extra years that God was working through some of your stuff. But
God needed more time on me.
Do you think if you'd met each other at 21 that...
We've asked ourselves that. I honestly don't know, but I think, for me, when I was 17 and I was a brand new Christian, I felt like God said to me really, really clearly that he had someone special for me to marry. And for me, and I thought at that point I was going to be single forever. I'd never had a boyfriend. And then God gave me this very clear message that he had someone for me. And I just felt really strongly from that age that I could trust God with that. And so I started just pursuing what I felt like he wanted me to do with my life, which was music ministry, and really just getting to know who he was more. And I didn't expect to have to wait till I was 30, till I finally met Phil, but it was totally worth the wait, absolutely.
But also God's grace too, because we've had various opportunities along the way, but I think God's grace and mentors and people in our lives just saying no. Just stick on the path. It'll be worth it. Don't compromise.
Because there's a temptation to sort of settle, say, well, look,
totally.
she'll have me or he'll have me.
Yep.
And that's 80% of the way there, surely.
Totally. And yet God's plan for us is so good. It is so worth it to walk closely with him and just be like, hang on, God, is this your plan for me? Is this, because there's so much that hinges on your marriage, and it just impacts every area of your life. So I look back and just really, really thankful, for getting to know who God is. And
How did you meet? Was it like across a crowded room, eyes met, love at first sight?
Like, the slow music started.
That was a really cool story because I was in ministry in Coffs Harbour and with my home church, and we had a period of 2 years without a senior minister. So myself and another guy sort of stepped in to oversee things. And Belle actually contacted me and said, I'm doing a New South Wales tour. Would you like to book me?
I lived in Queensland at the time.
And wow, I got more than I bargained for there.
It was fun, actually. So when I came to sing, he said, we'll do an interview with you on stage. And then, so we had this kind of moment on stage. That happens a fair bit at gigs. People will do an interview before I sing and, tell us about your CDs and tell us about your music. And he said, okay, go and grab a seat because we'll get you up to sing after the church announcements. And I said, I normally get worse questions than that, like, are you single?
Yeah, so you're saying this from the front, like up on stage.
This is in the interview. And as soon as I said it, I was like, why did I just say that?
Yeah.
And we kind of looked at each other and the whole church went, ooh, like this audible sound.
So did you actually know that each other was single at that point?
I think at that moment I knew. It was pretty much like the whole church was my wingman. And they're like, wow, we've been praying for this girl.
Because I start walking off then mortified and they're like catcalling and he says after, he's like, if you knew how many people at church have been praying for me to meet the right girl. So that's probably one of the really cool things because really we both were super involved in Phil in his church in Coffs and me up in Brisbane. And people praying for us for years and encouraging us. Like every time I would want to be taking an easier path or, perhaps compromise, God sent people along to say, Belle, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it to stay close to God. It's going to be worth it to stick on his path and do what you really know is the right thing. And so when finally, that wedding day came, my goodness, our communities, it was worship. It was like, God, you are faithful. It is worth it. It was very special.
And that was like nearly 3 years ago now?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Coming up to our anniversary if anyone wants to send us presents.
So, but here you are getting married, maybe a little later in life than maybe some people do. Is there a tendency to sort of get stuck in your ways and then find it difficult to sort of mesh?
I think the giftings that God's given each of us, they can either compete with one another, and my mentor says it this way, you're either competing or you're completing.
That's nice.
And so for myself, I'm organised, strategic, I've got a business background, and then I'm married a creative. So, and that's kind of like doesn't fit in. So
opposites attract, they say. Yeah.
But I think even in any marriage, like we've had all the normal like fights about how to load the dishwasher, how to do the washing. Maybe if you're younger, I don't know if it's different, but certainly we had we had very set ways of how to do things, and we've had to learn that the compromise is actually worth it for what you gain for the relationship, and that it's actually okay to maybe change the way you do things or
and to be authentic as well. I mean, we're sharing on platforms, and so we kind of have unresolved things in our marriage and then be on the platform saying, encouraging people to be faithful.
There's, every time there's a fight, we just try it. We're committed to making this work, and so it's worth it. It sometimes takes us a long time to be talking it through and a whole lot of tears, but get to that place where it's like we value the other person more than the issue and more than being right about this. And sometimes it's several conversations before it's sorted, but it's worth it.
Well, one thing I'd like to ask, and that's that, Belle, you're involved in full-time music ministry. I'd just like to get an idea of how that affects your relationship. I'm thinking of Phil in particular because, as you said, Phil, you've got this business background. You're a man who likes to be organised, and you've now hitched yourself to this creative star that's, sort of darting all about the country. Is that a challenge for you, like as a man, to to sort of be the offsider and
we made a very intentional decision when we got married that we're going to do this together as far as the music ministry is concerned. And to be honest, we didn't quite know how that was going to look. We had the temptation for sending Belle out to do her thing, and I'll continue to pursue business activities. But what we did is we changed it up so that we could do things together, and God's really opened doors now for me to also share as part of the ministry, both with preaching and with doing leadership workshops and things of this nature as well. But
I have to give credit to Phil too, though, honestly. He has really been very intentional about going, this is going to be an us thing. The ministry is about us. And I think we share a very a big passion for ministry that's the same, but the
we
giftings
love the local church.
Yeah, we love the local church. So we love to travel to share in local churches. And now it's honestly, one of our Bible verses at our wedding was in Ecclesiastes, 2 are better than 1, for they have a good return for their labour. And I see that all over in ministry. Everything that I've done has been made far more effective by having someone who's strategic and having someone who just thinks differently and brings different giftings. So it was either going to kill us or make us way stronger, and it's been worth the compromise to make it work. And I love it. It's so much more fun doing it together. We travel all over together now. And Phil, honestly, I love even more now, rather than just getting up to sing and share on my own, when he brings the word and preaches as part of the presentation or does leadership training.
Does really complement what you're doing.
Totally. And I feel like we can offer so much more now.
And are you offering marriage advice? I mean, now that you've been married for so long.
3 years, we're totally in the...
I mean, what people must hear your story and want to know, well, what about me?
What we do is encourage people in their journey, and whatever that looks like for them. And just to focus on God. That's really the...
When younger people come up and they're like, they perhaps are waiting on God for the right one, my advice to them always is, honestly, what has God laid on your heart? What is your contribution to the world as far as ministry? How has God wired you? Do that. Because as you pursue God, and as you spend your time getting to know Him, you're going to be in the right place. To then for God to bring along that right person.
But in answer to your question, we're not giving marriage advice just yet. We're a long ways from that.
Wow. Yeah. Look, you guys are a really great example of that beautiful Bible verse that says, "Commit your way to the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Hey, thanks so much for being with us today on InFocus. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break now. We'll be back in just a sec.
Every week, It Is Written is available to millions of free-to-air viewers throughout Australia, New Zealand, New Guinea and the Pacific. It Is Written's Gary Kent regularly takes viewers to the far corners of the globe to report on new evidence and discoveries that confirm the Bible and Christian beliefs. It Is Written also provides medical care to remote Pacific Island communities. Join Gary Kent each week for It Is Written. See television guides in the It Is Written website for broadcast times. It Is Written with Gary Kent. It really is television that changes lives.
Well, it's been a great program this week, and of course, if you'd like to see it all over again or share InFocus with a friend, the best way is probably our website.
record.net.au. All the program segments are there. Thanks so much for your company. We'll see you next time on Record in Focus.
God bless.